You came in like summer, slow and bold, dripping honey, lies in every word you told. Whispers on my neck, hands like a flame. You dance with danger, but you never take the blame. Your kiss is sugar, your touch is sin. I taste the heaven, but I feel it burn my skin. You pull me closer just to let me choke on all your sugar, salt and smoke. Sugar on your lips, salt in your stare, smoke in the air like you just don't care. I know you're poison, I drink you still. A pleasure so sweet, it's made to kill. Spin me around in a fever choke. This love is sugar, salt and smoke.
Damn if that wasn't a great tune. That was Sugar, Salt, Smoke by Alanajordan from Pixabay. And I started the last episode with one of Alanajordan's clips. And that's a great tune. I really love it because it really evokes that feeling of passion, right? That feeling of danger that comes with so many relationships, especially at the beginning. But really with life, it comes with so many things in life. You start a new job, you get close with a new friend group, right? And those things can be so sweet and sultry. And, you know, I think of the smoke and I think of that whole sultry feel. And, you know, you got a new friend group of girls or guys, and you're going out and having fun. And it can be salty, because stuff can turn south. I mean, happens all the time. Happens in relationships, with friends, with family, with jobs, with organizations you volunteer in, right? But why do we do those things? We do them because of these passions we have for them. Which kind of brings me to why I do this podcast. You know, I'm passionate about sharing things on my mind, ultimately so someone can find something in there to make their lives better, help them get through some of the things I've gone through. But here it is, middle of June, and it's only episode 2 of season 2026 of the No Bad Karma podcast, where I talk about living and loving intentionally. In the first episode of the year, I talked about my 7-year mark of sobriety and the 7-year itch. And when I was recording that episode, first of all, I recorded it live. And a couple of people popped in and I really wanted to take messages, comments, but you know, it had been a while since I recorded, and I was feeling a little nervous, feeling a little of my social anxiety, and just wanted to stay in the moment and try to get out the message I wanted to get out. Because I really wasn't expecting to record that episode. What had happened is at the beginning of the year, I was going through some stuff, and I recorded an episode. You know, beginning of the year, we all take stock of our lives and what's going on and what's working and what's not. And I had recorded an episode around that and was planning to start the year with that. And, you know, I was going through some stuff. That's why I recorded the episode or wrote the episode, and I never got to it. And then that 7-year mark of sobriety came around, and I thought, you know, I did a Facebook post. I hadn't been on social media in a while. And I thought, you know, I want to record a message. So I did. And then while I was recording that, and this is what I started to say, while I was recording that, my partner was actually sitting on the couch drinking a glass of wine. And here I am talking about sobriety. And she doesn't do that very often, but she said, wow, you were really passionate about that. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm passionate about my sobriety. I'm, you know, passionate about this podcast. I'm passionate about a lot of things. I mean, she knows the list of things. And that really stuck with me, though. And I thought, maybe that should be the underlying theme of this year. Talk about passions and all the ways that it comes out. And then I started thinking about the passions in my life and the things I'm working on. And how some of them have come to fruition. And some of them I'm still struggling through. And that got me thinking, wouldn't it be great if there was just a guide to changing your life? Here are 7 steps to change your life and make it all better tomorrow. And then I thought those 7 steps for me have been 7 years. Are those the 7 steps? What to do each year? But then I thought, no, really, there is a way. Because I've been doing it for several years now. I've been doing it with you for a few years. I do things without you too. And I thought, when somebody is where I once was, forget where I am now, but where I started my journey feeling at the bottom. What is it you do to change your life? So I managed to work it into 7 steps. And the first one I had was, well, why do you want to change it? What the hell happened? Right? You got to identify what the hell happened. And the other thing is, when does it get serious enough for you to want to do something about it? Right? What does it take? If I go back and think of all the things I'm working in my life and when they really started appearing, it was way long before I got sober. It was way long before I cheated and got caught. In fact, it was really kind of right before that. Because, we go through these phases in life, and that's one of the points I'll end with. We come back to them at some point, but there is a point where all of us are going through something, and it's like we have this epiphany. We have this moment where it's like, yes, 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 yes. We absolutely need to change now. So the first thing is like, what the hell happened? And like I said, when did it become serious enough? And for me, like I said, it started, I could go back 10 plus years. I could really think to go back to like mid 2015. And it was like, I knew I wanted to change myself professionally. Right? That's something I'm still working on now. It has much more focus now. But I can go that far back and think that's when I wanted to start changing things. Right? And somewhere around there, I knew my marriage was struggling again also. But instead of dealing with that because I drank what I do, I started an affair. So I avoided it. It wasn't serious enough yet. I got caught in 2017. Wasn't serious enough yet. Divorced by end of 2018. Also the affair officially over a couple months later when I got sober, February 2019. But take that mid 2015 to February 2019, that's like 3.5 to 4 years. 3.5 to 4 years I was going through things because like the business issues, the things I knew I wanted to start changing in mid 2015, they still didn't have the focus I wanted by February 2019. I didn't know what I was doing exactly. I was refocusing my business, but I didn't know what and how. So it takes me to, like I said, February 2019, almost 4 years before I get sober and wake up one day. And that's not what I'm saying has to happen to you, but there's a moment there because now I've been going through all this shit. My affair is effectively over. My business is in the shitter. I was sober just for 2 weeks just not long enough to be like, wow, my life's pretty fucked up. I got to get serious about changing it. And I did. And that's when essentially no bad karma became the mantra for my life because I was like, damn, I just can't generate any more bad energy in my life. Right? So that was 7 years ago. I got sober. But then I can fast forward to like March 2021. 2 years sober. And I've talked about this in previous episodes. Basically, all the activities I kind of had going in my life because of COVID and other reasons were paused. I had a job, but my relationship with my daughter was fractured at the time. I was single and not dating. I was, not involved with where I spent a lot of time involved with my church, and all that had been put to the side. And it was me and my dog in a house I didn't know if I could keep. And I finally had some focus to what I was doing professionally, etc. And I was like, I need a plan. Right. And I started putting that plan on paper. So now here it is, June 2026, 5 years since my plan, 7 years since I got sober, and I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to change my life. But here's the thing. My life's changed, and it's changed for all the struggles I still have. It's tremendously better. Incredibly better. Whether I've accomplished things or not yet accomplished things that I still plan to accomplish. My life has focus and passion every day. So, but something has to happen in your life for it to get serious enough. And really the question is, how bad does it have to get before you want to get serious about changing your life? And then that really brings us to the second point. Who are you doing this for? You always hear that saying, you can't be good for anyone else until you're good for yourself, right? Well, that's misused a lot, but this is what I'm talking about. What things do you need to do in your life to make you a better person for yourself? Right? And then, do others matter? Well, fuck yeah, they do. Of course they do. Absolutely they do. Especially your family, right? Your kids, your significant other, your siblings, your parents, right? If, I know we're born into this world alone. We leave this world alone. And a lot of times we feel we don't have responsibilities to those people. And you could argue that those responsibilities are based simply on blood, and we really don't have them. These are the people that we shared the world with, our existence in the world with. They either brought us into the world, we brought them into the world, or we share the existence with them like our siblings. Right? If you don't want to be your best self for your immediate family, and well, first of all, if you don't want to be the best self for yourself, what the hell are you doing? But you got to want to be the best self for your kid or someone in your family, someone that matters to you, don't you? So, as soon as you realize that's part of it, it's going to help you get serious enough. Third thing, when does it need to happen? Well, when do you want to change your life? When do you want it to happen? I mean, if you really want to change your life and you have that passion that I feel every day, and you want to get serious about it, then it starts as soon as you finish this podcast first. But as soon as you finish this podcast, because when you want it to happen, it should start happening now. There are things you can do every day just by your behaviors, right? But then there's a painful question you have to ask. How long is it really going to take? Excuse me. I think of going to school for a new discipline, right? You want to change your job, but your job's in a way, you want to change your career. You want to change what you do, but you're going to have to go to school for a couple of years to get the education you want to do that. So there's a real thing there that you can't eliminate. It might take you 2 years to go do that. Around the time I separated from my ex-wife, she was thinking of going going into a new career. In the medical area. She was in the medical area before, somewhere in the medical area. And she was like, I want to make this. She did it backwards. And this is a good point to change in your life because there is truth in this. You can work it backwards. Her goal was to make a certain amount of money and to work hours so she could still be home in the evening with our daughter and with the family. So she was looking at careers that were like 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. in the medical industry, and came back and said, oh, well, there's a surgical tech program, there's a medical assistant program. And even though she had a bachelor's degree, she'd still have to go to school for 2 years to do that. That was what it was going to take to change her life. And it wasn't, and point here that, like I said, it's changing your life. It's changing one aspect of your life contributes to changing your life. That she went to change our lives in multiple ways. She wanted more money coming in the door. She wanted to go back to work again to frankly feel that self-worth. She was changing her life in multiple ways with just this one thing. But coming back to the topic of the point 3, when's it going to take? It was going to take her 2 years to do that. So you can want to do it now, and you can start the process now, but it might take time. If you want to launch a business and take it public, well, it's going to take you time to get to that point. you want to start a business, you can go call your state and incorporate right now. So what's the goal? How long is that goal going to take? And that, that brings up a point I don't address here. The specificity of your goals. Well, don't worry about that right now, because the point is here, changing your life. And if you just pick one thing you want to change and you apply all this to one thing, that one thing changes your life. Like I was just saying, it can just be one aspect of your life. Okay, so we've already talked about why you might want to change it. What the hell happened? What's it serious enough? Who are you doing it for? You're doing it for yourself. And by doing it for yourself and truly for yourself, you're ultimately doing it for others. But if you can't find a reason to do it for yourself, look to others. Third, when? When's it need to happen? Needs to happen now. Might take longer than you think, so be realistic about it. And that brings us to point 4. So how do you start? What's the plan? What's the plan look like? Well, if I go back to when I said I first decided I really knew I needed to change my life when I quit drinking. And I said, I'm going to start living my life by my nobadkarma mantra, and also the mantra, humanity, others, and yourself. But I thought, what's that plan? And give choices purpose. And I thought, but what's that plan look like? Well, I joked around in an early episode, always greeted my friends of Earl. And if you know the old show from the 80s, I think it's on Hulu or Hulu on Disney Plus, My Name is Earl. Well, Earl did a bunch of bad things in his life. It's a sitcom from like I said, the 80s, I'm pretty sure. Earl does a bunch of bad stuff in his life, wins the lottery, and decides he needs to make everything right. So his goal, it's all about karma, and his goal is he's got to go fix it all. Well, that's kind of how I started. I was like, there's stuff in my life I got to fix. I gotta fix my business in general. There are clients I've wronged. I haven't serviced them as well as I should. I didn't deliver my services to the quality I normally would have. I also need business. So maybe this is an opportunity to make things right. Maybe there's additional business there. I mean, I was trying to use it for gain too. I can't lie, because I was struggling at the time, but the point was to try to make things right. And then, but you just can't. You just can't fix everything bad you did. A plan needs more than that. Right? So like I said, and when do you so how do you start? What's the plan? What's the plan look like? And when do you need the plan? Well, everybody plans differently. We could talk all day about planning disciplines, right? But so when you need a plan for you, what that plan should look like for you is very personal to you. But I know for me, I can't see the future until I literally take a piece of paper, maybe draw some boxes, different parts of my life, and say, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And this is what I want to do. And that's exactly what I did. And it took me 2 years of sobriety to get there. So it can take a while. You might have plenty of lists in the meanwhile, and that's cool, right? If your plans to, if you want to change your life by getting in shape, go join a gym. Go 3 times a week for a half hour. Put it on your calendar. There's your fucking plan. That's an easy plan. You want to go build a new career? Have to go back to school for 2 years. Well, that's a different plan. Because now you're spending money to go do something. How are you paying for that? Do you need to be making money? How's that change your life? I mean, there's real practicalities there you got to figure out. What's your schedule going to be? Right? But what I did, and I'll tell you what I did, is I literally sat down and said, this is my personal life. This is my dating life. This is where I want that life to go. This is my family life with my daughter, which at the time, like I said, was fractured, and my family. How do I want that to live like? If I lose my house, what do I want my living situation to look like? With my business, what do I want that to look like? And I asked myself that, and with the things I want to do for my life, my altruism. Because to me, that's a part I just can't let go. And I have things I'm passionate about. What do I want to do with that? And I just wrote down what I wanted to do. And this is important now. Because it hasn't changed. I wrote it down 5 years ago, March 2021 approximately, and it hasn't changed. It's grown. Now, I've accomplished some of those things, absolutely, right? And some of them I haven't, but I'm going to come back to that. But here's the thing. It hasn't changed. Because at some point, you get serious enough where you want things out of life and you pursue them. So what do you do with that plan? You put it into action. So that's how you start. You build a plan, whatever it looks like. It might just be doing it. It might be putting it in notes in your iPhone. It might be putting it in a spreadsheet. I have one of those too. It might be putting it in a Word document. I've got one of those too. I've got one of those for each aspect of my life. Christ, I probably had one for dating at one point because I was very specific with what I wanted. Right? So you put it into action. So that brings me to point 5. Get it. Don't settle and don't waste time. And the very first thing I can think of is just daily things, right? Daily things. Now, when I put my plan into action, I basically had nothing. When I say nothing, I literally had nothing. I had pretty much my furniture consisted of an old futon with a broken spring, dining room table that seats 8, nice to have, right? 2 broken leather lazy boys. And that was it. Oh, wait. And a bunch of work tables that I put my junk on. Those were my possessions, and a handful of clothes I barely fit. Right? Those were my possessions when I moved back into my marital property, single, and basically starting over. For the second time in like 2 years. Third time in like 3. So when I wanted to get things, this is what I decided. A, you can't take it with you. Right? You need things that are functional first. But at the same time, I only wanted to buy it once. If I needed to buy a fucking toaster, I wanted a toaster I wanted. If I needed pans, I wanted the best pans I could get for the money I could afford to spend. I wasn't going to go and spend buy a 1999 set at Walmart. I was going to at least buy the, whatever it was at the time, $149, I think, set at Costco. right? I was like, and that was the other thing. Part of my plan, going back to a plan, was, well, these things I want to do cost money, because part of my plan included just reestablishing myself in life. So I was like, I can afford to spend this much every time I get paid. And I just built my friggin' list of things in my plan and checked them off that I needed. But I decided, you can't take it with you. So you got to remember material things are only so important. But I like to cook. So I wanted to buy the things I wanted and the best I could with the money I could afford to spend. When I needed furniture, I could only spend so much. I knew I wanted a sectional. It was COVID. Nobody had furniture. I finally found a floor model that fit my budget. I bought it. Right? I didn't settle. I didn't change my standards. And I didn't waste time. It took time, but I didn't waste time. I made it part of my daily life. It was a daily thing. You want to lose weight? Well, then stop whatever daily habit is contributing to you not losing weight to start with. I'll talk about this in a future episode, but for me, I drank a lot of beer at one point and I put on all this weight at one point, and I really had no clue I put on so much weight, and I just quit drinking beer and it came right off. Now this was years ago before I quit drinking, but I mean, there are things you can do is my point. When I talk about getting in, not settling, not wasting time, let's talk about relationships for a minute, because I reached a point, and I've talked about this in past episodes, where I couldn't even, I'd be chatting with somebody I matched with in a dating app, and I didn't even want to waste time going on a first date because I just knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. Right? I had a friend I've talked about here in past episodes, Agent 99, who a girl that was too young for me, but really vibed with her, and but too young to maintain a relationship with or whatever. And we became friends, and she said, you're really passionate about basically said, you're really passionate about the people that you have a connection with. When I got involved later with Jane Jetson, who people go back and listen to that episode, which is interesting to me, probably because of what I said in the alcohol episode. But the thing is yes, because when I'm vibing with somebody, when there's somebody out there I want, when there's somebody that I have a connection with, I want to pursue that. When we are on the same page with what we want, it's really simple. When I met my partner, oh my gosh, I had laid out in my dating profile exactly what I wanted. And not only did it pretty much align with her, but she was like, thank you for telling me this is what you wanted. Because on date number 2, she's like, you were serious about being willing to start a family again? I'm like, yeah, and now we have a 18-month-old son. It changes lives, dude. That's why when it comes to relationships and dating, it's like, yeah, I get people that need to date to figure out what they like, because I hear people say that, and they do that for 20 years. It's like, what the fuck? That's an inability to commit. And like I said, don't settle, don't waste time. Think of family. What is it you want to do with family? No, I don't have the money to do this, but I wish I had the money to take my parents to international destinations, right? And that's a driver for me, man. If I can make enough money to do that at some point, I'd love that. I'd still work it in, right? But you don't want to settle and don't waste time, because here's why. I take my dad, for example. My dad's in his 80s. I know he'd love to go to Germany if he had the chance. He's never said, oh boy, that's something I'd love to do. He's never put it out there, probably because he knows it'd be hard for him. But now he's at a point where he has trouble walking around and can only walk, a little bit before it wears him out, and he's got to sit down but he refuses. I've said, Dad, we could go to the zoo. They rent, electric carts. They rent wheelchairs. I could push around. No, absolutely not. I'm like, Dad, you don't have to use it the whole time. You can get out. You can go up to the display. You can, take the kid up to buy an ice cream cone, whatever. But nope, I got too much pride for that. So now he didn't waste the time. He just didn't get to it. It wasn't a high enough priority to him with other things going on in his life. But now essentially he's taking that off the table. So now I think really if I could get him over there, he'd probably change his mind. But the point is, don't settle and don't waste time, because there might be a time where you can't do this anymore. So why do you want to fuck around? Why do you want to wait? And we're all going to die, so why do you want to live with fractured family relationships? When we talk about not settling, not wasting time, think of jobs and careers. Like if you got to make a change and enroll in school, then go talk to an advisor, put your plan in action, right? If you want to change jobs or careers, put your resume together. Talk to the boss about a promotion. Go take the classes you need. Like I said, even if they're not going back to school full time, but classes you can take on the side for certifications and whatnot. So again, your 7 steps. Why do you want to change it? Who are you doing it for? When? How do you start? Going out and getting it. Number 5. And then number 6, pause to self-assess and figure out your new reality. You're going to have to. For 2 reasons. 1, the struggle is real. The struggle is real in the traditional way, right? We all have to survive. And if you're at a point where you need to change your life, you're probably starting lower than you want. So that makes it hard. So you got to figure out your new reality. I never thought in my life I'd be Instacarting, but of course I had to go out Instacarting to survive, as I've talked about. Hell, I never thought I'd place an Instacart before I started Instacarting. As much as I'm a technology guy, I was just like, and I know that became part of our culture during COVID. I was just like, it's just something that I didn't care about. I was going to, be a creature of habit and do my shopping the traditional way. And I'd certainly never be delivering groceries. But the struggle is real. When you want to change your life the traditional way, you're going to go through things and challenges that you weren't expecting, and you just got to deal with that. And you have to figure out your new reality and how to get out of those holes sometimes. But the other reason you need to self-assess is growth hurts. Growth is painful. There are good things happening. And sometimes you're going to be feeling really down about things that haven't changed or haven't happened, that didn't happen. But you got to stop and think about what did, because if I sit back to what I put on paper 5 years ago, right, and I knew where I wanted to take my personal life, I knew where I wanted to take my business life, I knew where I wanted to take all these things, I can go back and be like, well, damn, that, even though I can tell you my plan was a 4-year plan. And here I am, like I said, 5 years later, and I am determined to get some stuff done by the end of this year. But I'm probably 6 months to 18 months out to still accomplish all those things. But growth hurts. But I did accomplish things. I started a family again. I relocated to the great neighborhood of Brookline in Pittsburgh. So change causes change from the growth you wanted. Causes new pains that you weren't expecting, and you need to self-assess and figure out your new reality. And then number 7, after you self-assess, what's your play? Rinse and repeat. Pull out your playbook. What's your play? And I say that because, well, not what's your plan. Now, you can go back and you can toss out your plan if you want, but I have a theory about plans. At some point, you're going to put together a plan for your life. And when you put together that plan for your life, you're going to have just one plan. Because you're going to realize that if you have a backup plan, you're not really going to focus on your fucking plan because you have a backup plan. So have one plan. But that plan can have different plays. Right? Something doesn't work out, change your play. What do they do in football? What do they do in baseball even? What do they do in basketball? They change the play. Oh, somebody read what I was going to do and I didn't want them to see that. Oh, I got to change my play. Right? Your plan's a playbook. It can have different plays. Don't have a plan and a backup plan. Don't have plan A, B, and C. Don't, have a plan. Figure out your plays so you can stay focused on your plan. And I'll end it with this. In preparing for this episode, I read this great story about Tim Allen doing press. I'll put a link in the episode description. Just read it on Yahoo Entertainment News, I think it was, about probably republished from somewhere else. He was doing press for Toy Story 5, and it talked about his life. And he was born in Colorado, I believe, but and his dad was killed when he was 11, killed by a drunk driver. His mom remarried and he moved to Michigan. And for some reason, people in Ohio, my age, grew up, watching him on whatever the Tool Time show was. I can't even think of it now. And we knew he grew up in Michigan. He's kind of a local boy to us. So what happened, though, is he was growing up in Michigan. And after his mom and new husband relocated there, and he went to college. He was in his 20s, I think, like 25 or so. And he got busted. I think he was working at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek Airport. I can't remember exactly, but he got busted there with like 1.4 pounds of coke. And if you grew up in the 80s, you know that there was this big crackdown on drugs, and at that time, that amount of coke should have got a life sentence. But the judge was lenient, and it was probably his first offense or first serious offense, and gave him the previous sentence of 3 to 7 years. And he spent 2.5 years, I think it was, or something like that, in jail. And during that time, he basically said, I'm changing my life. This is what I'm going to do with it. And he subsequently started comedy, got that show I mentioned, did his first Santa Claus movie, even did the first Toy Story movie. And I think it was like 97, 98, got a DUI. And he recognized that he was getting off track of his plan. And he got sober. And he's exploded since then. His life exploded. And I'm not saying because he got sober. I'm saying he went back to his plan. He knew he was getting off his plan. That was the thing that immediately hit me. He knew what his plan was that first time he went in jail. He came out. He started pursuing it. He was being successful with it. And then he got into trouble that could have really, the world's changed a lot. I mean, I think it was a little different back then. It could have really blew up his career back then. That was probably the time that especially if he would have continued with the alcohol. I don't know if he was doing drugs, but he knew he was off the plan for his life, and he just got sober so he could get back on track. And I thought that's great because, like I said, what's your play? You rinse and repeat. If your plan's really not working out, then yes, trash it, make a new one. But you'll know when you have a plan to change your life. And when you have a plan to change your life, you'll change other lives. Because you'll start giving your choices a purpose bigger than yourself. I'll see you soon.